All right, so I think we're ready to go. Officially come into order here, 7:02 p.m. If you want to note that, not that it's necessary, but I wanted to get everybody back together tonight. I've done a bunch of presentations and information sessions, and things are happening. And so I always feel it's good for us to get together, even though we've been a little bit skewed from our first Wednesday of the month deal. That's just been because of our schedules. But like I said, lots of good things happening, and I like to get the updates out there so that we can get them documented and if need be, look back, just as the dominoes fall. But our first item tonight is a standard item, which is just the review and approval of the previous meeting minutes, which Kathy has gotten together. We still have one outstanding set of meeting minutes that I have to watch the video and do for October. But as far as meeting minutes go, just in general, I think compared to most committees, except for maybe the town council might be a little bit more efficient than us. I think other than the October thing, we're pretty much up to date, which puts us on the forefront of people that are making sure that we're documented and that all our stuff is there and that we disclose everything. Everyone got a copy of the previous meeting minutes, and I just want to open it up to see if anybody had any questions, comments, additions, deletions, or anything to that nature. All right, so no, it sounds like there's no questions. We got Doug, we've got Jonathan, we've got Kathy, we've got Donna. I guess we'll just make a motion to approve the minutes or just vote on the minutes. I don't think we need to be too formal. Does anybody have any objections to approving the meeting minutes as presented via email? Okay. I don't hear any objections, so I'm just going to say, hey, I pass them. If anybody wants to raise their hand, that's great. But since there's no objections, I'm going to just count that as everybody in favor of that documentation. And we approve the meeting minutes and move forward to our next item, number 2. Number 2 is our front projection sign. And as you may recall, I presented to the town council a couple of weeks ago, and it was a good presentation. We went through a bunch of stuff. We were there for the sign, but we went through our entire summary from last year, sort of updated the report that we had presented. I used as the basis the report that we presented last March or April or so, and I just moved the timeline forward. But I thought it was important when I presented to the town council about the projection sign to roll back to what I call the simpler time, the summer of 2019, which was the time that we did our logo development. And I thought that was important because we were talking about a sign and we wouldn't really be able to move forward with the sign without having our logo and our imaging stuff together, as Doug has it behind him. And we are starting to put it on the website and put it in more places. And we've lived with it now for over a year's time. I feel it's going to stick. So it's been a seasoned item, but I thought it was important to go back to that and walk them through the timeline of all the great things that we've had happening, starting with the logo development. We walked through the entire presentation and got to the end of it. I sent the link to that out. If you haven't seen it, it's available on the town website. And there's also an article that was published in the paper regarding what happened. And we had a unanimous decision in favor supporting our sign with, I don't think, really any sign questions. There were a lot of questions, and they sort of centered around the Handicapped Chestnut Street entrance, as I'm trying to change my vernacular to not say back entrance, but just the Chestnut Street entrance, which is a rear entrance. But the point of that being to not diminish its equality as far as access to the building, and that's sort of that's a big deal. So there was a bunch of questions about that. I answered those. Relative to the sign, we had unanimous approval, which is what we were there for. The questions that came up as far as the rear door, let me see here. Let me just look real quick. Let me just close out the sign portion. And our next agenda item is to talk about the rear door. So I can talk about the stuff that came up in the meeting regarding the rear door, which is attached to the next item. As far as the sign goes, we had unanimous approval, which is great. And we are on the ZBA schedule for January 13th. And I believe that's a 7 p.m. meeting. It'll be similar to the meeting that I did with the design review board about a month ago. I don't expect really any hiccups or anything crazy to happen there. And so we had unanimous approval from the town council for our sign, which enabled us to move to the next step. And look, I see Joy, which enabled us to move to the, hi Joy, which enabled us to move to the next step. So with the unanimous approval, Joy, we're on item number 2. We approved the meeting minutes that were sent out. So item number 2, the front projection sign, we had a unanimous approval from the town council, and that allowed us to move forward with the ZBA to get on the agenda. We were fortunate enough to get, there's a little bit of paperwork that needs to be done and some documentation, which can be a little bit challenging. And we were able to get Steve Mayo and Gail from the building department to get us through that and get us on the agenda for January 13th. And the reason why it seems like a long time is because when you go to the zoning board of appeals, typically the issues that come up before them require an abutter notification. And that abutter notification is just mail, regular mail that goes out to people. And I believe it has my contact information so that if anybody had any questions prior to the hearing on January 13th, they have the ability to contact me and find out more information. So we had unanimous approval. We're on the ZBA schedule for January 13th. It seems like clear sailing. Generally, when you go in with the design review board recommendation, you do okay. There's a possibility something could come up, but we look pretty good. Assuming that we get the ZBA approval on January 13th, at that point, I'll get an invoice from Bob Sardello, which we've already approved in prior meetings, and I'll send that in for payment, and he'll send the sign out for fabrication. The sign takes 30 to 60 days to be fabricated and installed on average, so we're looking at probably St. Patrick's Day or so for our sign to be installed on the building, weather permitting. And that is item number 2. Does anybody have any questions about what I just said as far as presenting relative to the sign, presenting to the town council, anything they might have seen if they watched the meeting, anything really? Not here.
All set.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you for all your work on this.
No problem. Okay, so I'm gonna take this. Hold on for one sec. She calls again, answer because I'm on the call. All right, sorry about that. Just somebody I feel is going to call back and start talking through the machine, so I didn't want to have that on the call. Okay, item number 3, which is our rear door project update. So during the town council meeting, it was requested that we speak with the Disabilities Commission regarding our rear door. As I was going through the presentation, I talked about, or as I said, the Chestnut Street entrance. I talked about that, and the questions that came from the group after the presentation really were all about the Chestnut Street entrance and why did we pick it, and had we talked to the Disabilities Commission. We hadn't talked to the Disabilities Commission, not for any reason, not really for any reason, just because I believe that our architects are sort of schooled in how to do ADA entrances and that sort of thing. And quite honestly, I don't think it just occurred to us. That board's had various levels of activity. And so the suggestion was made that we talk to the Disabilities Commission. I took that suggestion, and with Ann Santos, we contacted the Disabilities Commission. I had them in for a tour of our building on Sunday. They were there for about 90 minutes. And we talked about just everything from the bathrooms. They looked at the bathrooms. They liked the way our bathrooms were, to the Chestnut Street entrance, to the elevator, the pros and cons, the whys, the costs, things that we've covered in our meetings in excessive detail, and caught up to date as far as why we were doing things the way that we had planned, and if they had any observations showstoppers, anything that we really should consider. After the tour, as the tour concluded, they told me that they were fully in support of what we were doing, that they had no issues, no substantial issues. Things that came up, or one thing that came up, actually there's two things I think that came up. One had to do with the rear entrance. The one thing that had to do with the rear entrance was they just wanted to make sure that in the exterior hardscaping that we included colors that weren't too aggressive for people with visual disabilities. And they also wanted to, if there was any height changes, grade changes, which our hardscaping is designed such that there's not like sidewalk level changes, but that any place where there was a grade variation, that should be denoted in yellow, and they believe that to be part of the code anyhow. And so their feedback was they love what we're doing. They're totally on board. They don't have any issues as far as which side of the building the access is at, and they are very appreciative of the fact that we are doing this on the short run, because a lot of it had to do with timing. And when we were in the meeting, questions came up about, why this way, why that way. And the honest truth is we hope to have ADA access through both doors, but it was a question of timing and it was a question of funding. And so they were very much in favor of the idea that in 2 or 3 or 4 months, we could be complete with introductory access, we might call it, and that sometime down the road, we could have access from both sides. But they agreed that it was a good idea to put it on the short time frame versus the longer time frame, because there was no really added value in waiting, especially considering that we already have funding. So,
Yep. And Chris, actually, that really ties in with a lot of comments that we have received from people when we have had events, and and we have gotten feedback that people are looking for ADA compliant accessibility, and they frankly didn't care where it was. They just wanted it to be there because they wanted to participate. So that's great to hear. That's great feedback from that group.
Right. Agreed. Other things that we talked about that came up between the town council meeting and that we hadn't specifically or explicitly discussed were, let's say somebody arrives in a handicapped vehicle, they're the driver, or at least a handicap plate on their vehicle, where are they going to park? And while there's handicap access, there's handicap spots in the back of the bank, which is great, we don't technically own them. It's sort of, they're allowing us to use them. There's no agreement per se in place, but the 2 available handicap spots that are nearby, the first one is on the front side is at Foster's Lane, or not Lane, Foster Street, the corner of the item, the half a block up, the corner of the item, and I think it's Foster Street. There's that one. So if somebody came and parked there, they could get out and roll across the street and just roll around into the Chestnut Street side and get in fairly easily. So there was no real challenge there as far as the existing handicap spots. The other handicap spot that's nearby is at the corner of Chestnut Street and Main Street. And very similar to, they could park there and get onto the sidewalk, roll up a short distance, take a left, and go across our easement and into our access area, which again, the feedback was if there's grade changes or just be conscientious of the color, don't try to get too artsy and crazy with the color so that it's not intimidating to people who have visual issues, and also indicate any grade stuff with the bright yellow, which I believe is part of the architecture and building code anyhow. Like when you go on a sidewalk and there's a dip down, there's usually like sort of like I don't want to say grade, but like a grid kind of thing with bumps. You might see when you go through like a handicap sidewalk ramp down, it's sort of like textured pavement, as well as the yellow. So the big feedback was yellow lines around grade changes, and just keep it visually non-offensive. An item that came up and we weren't talking specifically about the elevator, but we covered it as we were talking about pros and cons and the fact that we looked ahead. They had a concern, which is a little bit of an early concern, that if the elevator had doors going outside and inside, that autistic people might run, or autistic children have a tendency to run. So if we had an elevator that accessed the outside directly, that we could lose people, and they wanted us to be aware of people on the spectrum potentially needing a little added protection so that they didn't get kind of lost out the building or accidentally take the elevator, say, to the door that opens to the Chestnut Street entrance without people knowing. So that's something that, since we're not talking about an elevator now, isn't on the forefront, but I put notes for when we do talk about an elevator to make sure that concern's logged. The other thing with the Disabilities Commission is, like I said, I spent 90 minutes with them on Sunday with 3 of their folks. And then I attended and gave a presentation at their meeting on Monday night, wearing what I'm calling this my Zoom shirt, because I've been putting this on for my meetings and then I go back and put my t-shirt on. So if you watch their meeting on Monday night, I'm not a filthy person. This is just my Zoom shirt. So I presented at their meeting and talked to the rest of the folks that couldn't make that. We went around, they were all very supportive, very happy of what's going on. And what I told them was that this isn't a one and done. Well, we were asked to speak with them, that we plan to keep them engaged. And when we finished, I'd bring them back there to show them what was going on. And actually, I just thought of another piece of feedback, which I have in my notes here, which is they wanted to also make sure that we paid attention to the signage, from everything from our website to the front door, to make sure that people knew how to get to the handicapped, or actually, and the thing that they corrected me on, you're not supposed to call it handicap, you're not supposed to call it ADA, you call it an accessible entrance. I guess that's the term. So they wanted to make sure that directions to get to the accessible entrance were included in our media, as well as our signage for the front of the building, so that if somebody came to the front of the building, they had directions to the accessible entrance, and that there was no confusion. And I told them that I'd tour them, when we were done, I would tour them through, and that signage to that level we will include, and that we'd be happy to take their feedback as to how we did it and if we need to make changes during sort of the polishing phase.
And Chris, maybe, kind of coming off of that as well, building off of that, I think there's an opportunity too to think about the accessible entrance as not just the entrance that, folks that need an accessible entrance would use, but just as another way of accessing the facility. And so I think as you guys think forward about sort of how you raise the visibility of the center, thinking about signage, maybe at Chestnut Street, where the right of way is, by the parking lot or near that door would also be something that might be worthwhile.
Agreed. And that's what we had discussed, was that, the signage needs to be there for the front door, for the back door. And like you said, on Chestnut Street, even if it's just a little arrow from the sidewalk, hey, this building's over there. We don't have a sign like we have out front, the projection sign, and one of our renderings has it saying ACE over the door, which is not going to be included at the moment with what we put out to bid. It could be at that point, but that's not been put into our cost estimates. Everything that came out, we did a lot of funky iterations of what it could look like, and that's just another cost item, and we're trying to be fiscally conservative. However, I think with smaller levels of signage, we can accomplish that goal.
Chris, too, I would wonder if the Disabilities Commission might be able to give us some insight too into any available funding for a specific sign in that case, which might not be, very expensive and might be a more, manageable amount to apply for.
And the answer to that is yes. There was funding discussions regarding just funding options. They've met recently with a group that does specific funding things, and underused funding was actually really, I think, how we got into this conversation. Was Jonathan was talking to Dan Benjamin, who indicated that there were some underused funding supplies, and in our, at least the primary part of this, that's great, except we were funded for that, but there's definitely more conversation to be had regarding funding, especially as we move towards the elevator, which is going to be a whole different beast, because at that cost level, we're going to be well over $100,000. That's going to require most likely bringing in the permanent building committee, who handles projects that are at that level. And so once we get through, hopefully, what we're planning now, that's going to be a big effort. Everything from funding to just the path to success. The path to success of what we've done with the last project and this project are very similar, but we'll be hitting to a whole new level at that point. And we'll also be in a integrated situation where we'll be tying in with Envision, potentially doing the front door, doing an elevator. It's going to be a whole different game at that point. Does anybody have any questions regarding signage, the interactions with the Disabilities Commission, or the interactions with Santander, or where we're at with that project? Now, what I will say is that there's still more work to be done. The Disabilities Commission was something that came up in our other meeting, and I think it's a good checkbox to have off that we had missed. And I like to say that patience is the strongest muscle. That's my new catchphrase I've been using lately. And so, we were patient. I was able to get that together quickly, but we will continue to do due diligence. I would have loved to have put this out to bid a couple months ago, but there are just conversations that need to be had as we go through. I need to still speak with the town engineer, Bill Renault, and he's also, I believe he's the town's handicap access officer, I believe, as well. So as we review the plans for the Chestnut Street entrance, there'll be more conversations with him. I've had some conversations with our architect today, and there's some challenges going on there that I need to work through with him in the next week or two. But we're getting really close, and I think getting the Disabilities Commission on board, they're very excited, and I think that they were very excited to know that we had already thought out about the elevator and that we had thought through many of the scenarios. So we've all been there for a long time, where people are asking questions in a lot of different directions, and have you thought of this and have you thought of that? And the answer is yes, we have thought of a lot of these things. We've got lots of reports, and we spent lots of money on architects and coding people and zoning people and that sort of thing. I believe we're really close, but there is a little bit more due diligence to do with the town engineer, with the town administrator, as well as our plans and costing and a few other things. But we're, I'd say 85 to 90% there, with a few more phone calls and a few more things that need to happen. And then at that point, we should be fairly well vetted and out to bid. So again, I'm going to just throw it out to everybody here. Does anybody have any feedback or questions about either the presentation regarding the sign, or number 3 that we just went over, the rear door project update and issues associated with the Disabilities Commission?
If we end up doing a sign for the accessible entrance in the back, does that have to go through the commission as well? The committee, the
commission or the ZBA?
The ZBA.
I don't know. I think it depends on what kind of sign we do. Like the reason that this particular sign, I believe, had to go through the ZBA was twofold. One was all projection signs in downtown have to. If we did one off the accessible entrance, that if it wasn't a projection sign, it wouldn't necessarily have to go to them. But the other reason that we had to go to them was because we were outside the lines of the regulations of the sign overlay district, which is, the regular zoning plus some for downtown. So we were there for 2 reasons. One, because we had a projection sign, which in the future, I think that's not going to be required to go to them anymore, but right now it is. You go to the design review board, which really are the nuts and bolts sign people. But again, ours was outside the lines. We're at like 13 something square feet. The regulation says 9. The bottom of our sign is at 17 square feet. The regulation says 14. And it's just because of the way that the rules were written. They were written based off of previous instances of signs that people didn't like and they didn't want. So they sort of wrote the rules to make it so that couldn't happen. It was just came from a different place. And it's being revised, and everybody's trying to make things simpler. I think stepping it up so that the design people are more focused on signs. But as far as does that have to go there, the straight answer is I don't know. The second answer is we'll find out when we get to that point.
I was going to say the one word answer I would have given is maybe.
Little verbose. I'm sorry. So let's see here. So we got that. So yeah, we're on 13th is our date for ZBA. We talked about colors of hardscaping. Number 3 is or number 4, bathroom update on the tiles. There's actually no tile update. I'm just holding that as an item because that's something we need to get done. And I don't want to take it off the agenda. If I keep staring at it, we won't forget about it. Not that I 100% think I would, but what I will say is that the bathrooms are still operating fine. The issues that we had outside of the tile with sewage or whatever was happening have not come back. It's something we're going to have to keep a watch on because obviously something happened with the sewage backup. We don't know what happened, but we know that everything's been cleaned up. So we're grateful and happy for that. And that's really all I have to say on number 4. Does anybody have any questions about bathroom tile or sewage or any of that? Okay. Number 6, we've got the nonprofit Friends of Ace. This is, again, a standing item that we have here, but I'm going to pull in an email that I got from Jonathan, which was he received, actually, there's 2 things I'm going to pull in. One was he received a communication or spoke with Bob Melhoit, who is the president of the Wakefield Main Streets group. And Wakefield Main Streets is interested in promoting arts and culture and all the things that we do downtown. And they're obviously focused on Main Street. Bob's somebody we've known over the years. We haven't collaborated much. I'm sure that we're becoming a little more interesting now that we're becoming a little more high profile and we've got a lot of things there. But their intents are all pure and genuine for downtown. And so we want to try to engage with them and start to have some preliminary conversations about how we may be able to do things as we emerge from COVID and just move into 2021. Jonathan, do you have anything to say about your conversation with Bob and what I just said there?
No, I think that, Wakefield Main Streets, is trying to figure out sort of how they can kind of continue to be a productive influence on sort of the vitality of downtown. And, part of the Main Street sort of movement across the country is focused on bringing arts into downtown areas. And so he and I had a long conversation about basically their plans for 2021. And he talked about having an interest in the arts, and so I wanted to connect him with you guys. I suggested that it would be worth him and maybe a couple of the other officers from Main Streets to come to one of these meetings and maybe have some time to just have an open discussion with this board to figure out where there might be some areas of opportunity or places where you can collaborate. One thing that we did talk about briefly is because of how Main Streets is set up, where they are a not-for-profit organization, they have the ability to apply for grants for certain things. And so, as ACE thinks about sort of what kind of funding opportunities might be out there, and if there are grants that, may be closed out to you because you're part of the town as opposed to an independent 501 organization, that might be an area where maybe Main Streets can be helpful in terms of thinking about ways that you can collaborate for a joint proposal for a grant opportunity.
Awesome. Yeah, that's something that we've definitely talked about, and this whole idea of a Friends of Ace thing, was for that same reason. It's a little more work, and with them already being established, if we partnership, that saves a lot of legwork as far as applying for grants and that sort of stuff. We don't have to kind of create our own 501c3. Maybe we don't even do a Friends of Ace thing, and we sort of put that on pause if we have access to that type of credential through Main Streets. And another interesting thing about Main Streets for people who don't know, Main Streets is a big group. They've been all around the country. In one of my second adopted hometowns of Orlando, Florida, they actually have something like 7 different Main Streets groups, and they have one in each section of their town. So they've got one. My house was like the Lamp District. They had one for Winter Park. They had one for downtown Orlando. They had one for East Orlando, and they really become hyper focused on like a 1 mile by 1 mile sort of X square area. So they're I'd never heard of Main Streets before it came to Wakefield, and I looked it up like everybody else. Hey, and then all of a sudden I was back in Florida like 2 years ago, and I started noticing them, and I saw them, and it can be a really powerful structure, especially in a localized kind of way. Does anybody have any questions about the Main Streets group, our communications or suggestions or observations? Okay. Another communication on the same item of number 6, and I'm going to go back to number 5, which I somehow jumped over. Number 6 is I also was contacted by, I believe it's Erin Coquinda, who's the new town economic development director, supervisor, something to that effect. She sent me an email just basically saying, hey, let's talk about sort of similar to what we were talking about with Bob here. I haven't had the opportunity to get back to her. It was just, I think, yesterday, or it might have been a couple days ago, but we have a lot going on. So I'm gonna connect with her before we meet again, and most likely give her a tour of the building as well. My world famous 90-minute tour of the A Center, all 3 floors included, popcorn free.
Even the scary basement. Hey, Jonathan, could you give us a little information around the Economic Development Director? Is it just to help us orient us as to what that role is in town?
Sure. So this was a role that we created actually with the retirement of Paul Rivas, who was our town planner. What we wanted to do was sort of take that role and broaden it to focus both on kind of planning, but also the execution of the plans that we put together in terms of how they support economic and community development in town. And so that's really what Erin's kind of retooled role is focused on. She is, first of all, outstanding. She's been with us for 3.5 weeks, and I swear to God, she's already met like half the people in town. She's really, really energetic about the role and has strong experience both in planning and community development, having worked previously for the City of Lowell and the Middlesex 3 Coalition. And part of what she's going to be focused on is how do we find these opportunities to leverage connections between different constituencies in town to support economic and community growth. And so I think that's why she reached out to you, Chris, and I think in a lot of ways can be supportive, both in terms of helping you guys find potential grant and funding opportunities for things that we're doing, but also connecting you to some of the businesses on Albion Street and Main Street, and helping to kind of raise the profile of ACE as part of, a vibrant, livable community in Wakefield. So I think she's going to be a tremendous resource, and I think you'll really value having her behind you.
That's great to hear, especially with her having a relationship, understanding how Lowell operates, because there is a big arts presence in Lowell. So that can only be beneficial for us to learn from.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think she'll be a tremendous resource. She's got a lot of great ideas, and, has also done a really good job of just listening to different business owners in town. And so I think she'll definitely welcome the opportunity to learn about what ACE is doing and what your long-term plans are.
And what she said to me in her email was that she's very interested in, let's say here, I am a huge proponent of placemaking and would love to partner with you on some new initiatives. Which placemaking and a sense of place is a big thing that has come up with the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and just sort of establishing that whole idea of culture and commerce and everything coming together, where we did in our 2017 report, where we talk about if somebody comes to us, how they're going to, they're probably going to go out to a restaurant, or they might go shopping and then they come to us. So establishing a sense of place, and that extends to things like our red carpet that we've done, where we sort of extend out on either sides, and now we're going to have entrances on both sides. So establishing a good sense of place is a big deal. There's a little bit more to that, which is slipping my mind at the moment.
Well, and I think that also ties into with the Envision project, and using that to focus on placemaking as part of, kind of the downtown area. And then again, how does ACE sort of fit in with that as really the focal point of arts and culture in Wakefield, and kind of bringing, some of what you guys have been doing, and we'll be able to kind of expand upon, as we hopefully turn the corner on the pandemic, how do we bring some of that outside of the building as well?
Right. So I think there's a lot to explore there between Bob and Aaron and even reaching back into the Disabilities Commission with their expertise in underused grant programs that they have for things. We're going to need a lot of money for the stuff that we want to do. We're only a couple $100,000 into what we've estimated at various times to be $1.5 million, $2 million worth of stuff that we want to do. We have other big items coming up once we hopefully get our Chestnut Street entrance out to bid and get our sign installed. We're going to be at a new position to sort of do our long-term planning. And we've got things that are on there that are kind of some scary items. And some of those scary items include things like the word sprinkler system. You know, that's something that's $100,000-ish that we need to figure out. And so there's a lot of things up there. So, you know, a sprinkler system funding might come from the Mass Cultural Council, whereas elevator funding could come from a lot of different places. So they've got certain items behind them for that. Does anybody have any questions regarding Bob, regarding Aaron, regarding elevator funding, anything that we've talked about? All right, hearing none, I'm going to go back to number 5, which I somehow skipped over, which is future events review, the New Beginnings Art Show, which I'm the committee sponsor for that. We have our funding from the savings bank. We've got a $500 start to get PPE, pay for janitorial services, as well as thermometers and that sort of thing. I'm working with the artist now to get things set up. We've targeted a rough time frame of January through April. Haven't set an actual start date as we're trying to figure out and get set up. I'm not overly concerned about specific dates as I'm working with everybody. And if we don't get going till the middle of January, in my head, that's okay, but I'm trying to get everybody set up by the end of the month. But with being in the middle of the holidays, it might slip a little bit. We have to get some thermometers and a few other things, but we will start when we're ready. I spoke with Eric Escudel yesterday, and he's got some prints coming in. He's hoping to come in the next day or two. We have Liza Vaughn down there. I've talked to John O'Brien, and I still have this open for other people that want to be included. I spoke with Anne Marie, has started a graphic for us. She's making some changes to that graphic. She missed a name or two, but we'll start getting some media together for that. Hope to be set up by the end of the year, if not in the first couple of weeks of January. And once we're ready, and we're also keeping an eye on the pandemic. Once we're ready, we will send out our materials. The rollback that happened in the last couple of days isn't going to actually affect us because the goal that we had set for that was something 8 people or less. And I believe it was like you could be at 50% capacity and rolled back to 40%. We're nowhere near that. We're at like 5% of what our rated capacity is, which I think is somewhere in the 100 ballpark. But the rollback, unless it goes back to closing art and cultural facilities, which is the guidelines that we're using with the state, outside of that, we pretty much can open even with the rollback under those guidelines. But there's still stuff to be figured out. There's still phone calls for me to make. We still need to set things up. We hope to be ready by the end of the year or very early in the new year. Once we get to the point of ready without any kind of rush and we feel confident and we've got everything in place, and not until we feel confident and have everything in place, as I am the committee sponsor and responsible, or the primary person responsible for this, we'll be ready to go. I will give an update at our next meeting, and or if I have information prior to our next meeting, I'll forward it to everybody regarding this. But we should have media. We should be getting set up in the next little bit. I should put a shout out to a few people. I'd love to have people who wanted to come down and help us clean up, since we haven't really cleaned up since construction. The gift store room in the front we need to figure that out. There's a lot of stuff in there. Either that or we just need to lock that room off and just kind of continue. There's a lot of stuff in there. So we need to get that figured out and get the show set up. Ideally, the show would be in that room, but we have so much stuff in there. I just don't know how that's going to be figured out. But I need more.
Yeah, Chris, that was my concern thinking about that, because there really isn't. I mean, you'll you may end up using a few of the display items in addition to the wall hanging system, but there are things in there that, there is no other place to put them, which leads us to the whole conversation around, storage and, storage on another floor and then the need for an elevator, et cetera, et cetera. So, but yeah, do you have a time that you're thinking of doing this on the weekend? Because I'd love to come down and help out.
I haven't figured out a time, but I'm this weekend.
Okay. All right.
I mean, we're on
right.
we've got a couple group texts and stuff going, so we can handle it offline.
Just, keep me in the loop. Yep.
So that's a go. Other topics. So our friend Paul Rivas, who retired, I talked to Paul on Thanksgiving morning. I gave him a phone call. I called a few people. I called him, and I don't know if anybody's from Wakefield that knows Mr. Ritza, who was a music teacher years ago. I called him. He lives over at Brightview. I called him actually a couple days before Thanksgiving. He was delighted to get a phone call, and I told him all about it. And he's excited because, we sometimes have music. And I think he said, "Chris, you're a good man, and I hope you'll find the opportunity to give me a call at some point in the future." So that's kind of nice.
That's nice.
Paul was delighted. Paul, he lives down, I believe, in Greenwood, an apartment now. He moved here. He moved to Wakefield from Malden. He couldn't get enough of this place. And, he was excited about all the things that had happened and, just generally positive and said that he's a little gun shy with COVID, but he said that he will be down to see us at some point soon, as soon as he's comfortable. So, I talked to him for like an hour, or maybe a little bit more than an hour, maybe an hour and a half on Thanksgiving. And so I don't know, it felt good. So that was good. Let's see here. So other things. I don't think I have anything else for tonight. We're 44 minutes in. I think Doug, you were looking at. We had talked a little bit about maybe tricking through the website and the prototype that we had that Tony did, and I don't know if any progress has happened there. If you got anything.
No, I really haven't had time for that. But Tony did send me an email today to see if we could catch up on that.
Okay. Yeah, I talked to him and told him that, if we were going to go with anything, that he needed to be a little more aggressive, just because we're losing time. And we talked about, some of the details on that. And I looked at the prototype thing that he had, and as long as it's, super within the same budget that we're working, I'm not super concerned. It's just that I told him that he needed to be a little bit more aggressive, because as we looked at that, there was a lot of just holes that didn't get fixed, and we told him about it. So I just sort of said, get with Doug, and he said, well, he kept talking to me, and I said, listen, when Doug gives me a phone call telling me we have something ready to go, I'll look at it again. I'll look at it again, so we'll see where we're at. But
I'll try and hook up with him soon. So
then just the thing that the reason why I even bring it up is because if it's that great, if that doesn't work out, which, I give it, 50-50 chance it might work, it might not. We'll just stick with what we have, and we need to set up the advanced booking system for the next show. So it might just be an email thing where we'll list the times and we'll have people send in emails. If we integrate it a little more fancy with the website, or if you happen to be poking around and you see like an online tool for booking that kind of stuff, if there's like an open source kind of thing where we can just kind of plug it in, where we can put up times, and then people can book it in an automated fashion with something that's open source and not expensive. That might work, but if it doesn't, we'll just do it by email.
Okay.
So that's everything. Last item we have here before adjournment is wow, and I really numbered this agenda wrong too. There's no item number 8. It goes from 7 to 9. Is just unanticipated topics. Joy, do you have anything, or Donna? I haven't heard from Donna tonight.
No, you've done a great job.
Maybe Donna, maybe we can get the garden club in here in the spring.
Hopefully we can all go out in the spring.
Yeah,
Right.
The garden club did a nice job with the Wakefield sign down at the Common. Nice job. Nice article in the paper.
You like the Santa Claus that came from the Carino household?
Yes. I wanted to see if it was really Chris in there or not. So
Jamie and I like went by, we saw it, we came home, we started talking about it. We talked about it with my mother. And then the next thing you know, I had a Santa Claus in my house for 3 weeks and we were figuring it out. And then we did actually a repair job this morning. One of the members, Maureen, was over our house today because some of the balls on the bottom broke or just got dislodged. So tightening it up a little bit. And I talked to Mark Seidel. I think he put a picture of it in the paper, and we're tweaking some stuff and putting it back in. I just got back from a holiday lights tour down in Florida, and I saw so many lights that we came back and we're like, we need to put more lights on the sign. We need to do this. We need to do that. And then it's really cold out and it's not in Florida. So our ambitions got banged down really quick.
Hey, Chris, in regards to your comment about an open source type of tool out there for being able to do sign up, Anne Marie Galvin has used, and I'm looking at the site, but I can't find what it's called or what its name is. Joy may or may not know, but the site that she used for the Music for Your Eyes and another event that we had where we used it for registration and sign up. I just can't see what the tool is called. Otherwise, I'd tell you what it is. But Anne Marie will know right off the top of her head because she was the one that set that up for prior Arts Collaborative events.
Okay, I'll ask her. We've been talking every couple of days, so I talked to her yesterday. I'm sure I'm going to talk to her tomorrow. So if she's got something, because that's the easiest thing. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We know people are doing this all over the place, and even if it was just a plugin that said, hey, for everyone, it's $2 for each time it gets used, that's totally within the reasonable range versus trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, I think this is free.
I like free. Free's a great price.
Oh, it might be Google Forms.
Google Forms is free. We've got that.
Okay.
All right.
So Kathy, you're talking about when we sign up for shows?
Yes, exactly.
It is Google Forms. It is.
I think that the thing that's I think important there, and I don't know if that makes Google Forms not work or whatnot, is just trying to make it so that people actually show up. So like if there's a little bit more stickiness to it, like if somebody books a time and there's no legitimate confirmation, we might have somebody sitting there and then people don't show. If you book it 2 weeks ahead of time and say, I'll take next Sunday at 3, and then you're not reminded, or your credit card isn't on it with $1 charge or something where you get social cues to be responsible. I just don't want to have people sitting there with their, twiddling their thumbs because people forgot they signed up, or because the cost of entry, free things are bad because when people aren't that invested, then they are very easy to blow them off. So I don't want to have staff people and arrange for people to be there and then have people just not show because they're being irresponsible. I mean, that might not happen in COVID, but pre-COVID, that would happen all the time. So that's just something that and maybe we live and we learn. We try it one way, and if it doesn't work, we go there. But I do know that if, and especially the way that I book things, I have 47 reservations on Marriott.com right now. But I do know that if I don't cancel them a day before, because I do all these scenarios and it's free to book. However, if I don't cancel a day before, I get tagged with the room fee, and I cancel like 50% of the time, but I do it so I can get the good rate. So just the people who play the system like me, I want to make sure that, there's a penalty for not showing, or there's some sort of enforcement so that the system doesn't get abused or not work, or just even worse, waste somebody else's time.
For conferences this year, we used something called Sign Up Genius, but there wasn't a penalty for not showing up at the conference.
What's that, Doug? I thought I heard.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't you? Oh, I thought I heard something.
No, I said that we used a program called Sign Up Genius to sign up for a slot.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a penalty for it.
Okay.
For not showing up. So.
I guess we'll.
I do think though that Sign Up Genius does allow you to do like automated reminder emails out to the folks who signed up. So that's something else that might be useful.
I think the reminders help. It's hard these days because everybody's lost track of time, so it's a little bit more difficult to even remember what you said you were going to do tomorrow, let alone a couple of weeks in advance. So a reminder email sounds like a good idea.
Absolutely. All right, I'm gonna just open it back up. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about that we talked about tonight, or we didn't talk about tonight, or we should talk about in the future? Does anybody want to be in the New Beginnings show? That I called a few people and invited a few people, but it's really open if there's other Arts Collaborative people that are in there. I know it said in some of the media that this was an Arts Collaborative show, and it really is just a show that I curated. I think that might have just been misquotes. But if there's anybody,
did I have that? Did I put that in the minutes, or
No.
when you say media?
I'm gonna point at Jonathan. I think he said in his update that it was being put on by the Arts Collaborative, which is a technical detail that only this group could appreciate.
Yeah.
But if there's people in the Arts Collaborative that want to be part of the show, there's no limit. I just got a base amount of artists to get the thing full. We got people that I've worked with before that I know are fairly easy to work with. But if there's other people in the Arts Collaborative, even if you want to send out an email to them and say, hey, there's space, let them know.
If you want me to do that, I can do that because I have not done it yet.
I'd say you could offer it out to them. I'm getting people set up. So if there's definitely space. It's like detail wise, how much space, where is it? It's really for, if there's serious inquiries, just point them in my direction. And I definitely won't discriminate. We'll find a place for people to put stuff up.
Okay. I'll put it out this weekend.
Okay. They're not in the media right now, so I don't want people to get offended if their name's not on the poster or something. That's going out soon, but we'll do the best we can to accommodate anybody that wants to participate.
What's the time commitment?
I haven't written the document, but I'm going to have people sign something that says, you'll give it's a 3 or 4 month commitment that we want people to put their stuff in, because this is going to be an extended show, not like a one and done. So ideally, if you get in there by the end of this month or January, we're going to put stuff on display, have limited or small versions of attendance, and the show will end either at the end of March or sometime in April. So we don't want people to pull things out. So they need to commit to be able to leave that there. I'm leaving it open for anybody that wants to, you can put prices on your stuff. You can sell your stuff. I just don't want people taking stuff out before the end of the show, which will be end of March at the earliest or sometime in April. So if they deliver a piece, don't expect it back until that time.
Hey, Chris, if you think of it, would you send me the form that you submitted that has that has some of the preliminary details? Because the details that I can put into the email to the Arts Collaborative, because people are going to come back with, how long, what are the details, what's my commitment, what's the cost? I mean, that's what everyone's going to want to know. So if I can get a quick blurb from you, or if you think that's all in the form you used to submit to the ACE committee here, if you could just forward the form.
Okay. Yeah.
That'd be helpful.
Yes, details. Not a problem.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Do we have anything to talk about? All right. I'll schedule our next meeting as soon as it seems appropriate. It might be the first Wednesday in January. It might be the second one. Don't think it'll be before the end of the month. If there's new and interesting information, like I said, we're really trying to get this Chestnut Street entrance out to bid. There's a little bit of some hurdles that we need to do there. I'm hoping that doesn't take too much longer, but it's due diligence. Again, my little catchphrase I've been using, patience is the strongest muscle. So I'm just hopeful that it will be soon. So if nobody has any objections, I'm going to motion that we adjourn. And does anybody have any objections? So I'll take that as a unanimous vote to adjourn. And everybody's got my phone number, my email. Anybody has any questions, definitely connect with me.
Thanks, Chris.
Happy holidays and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah. you
Thanks,
too.
everyone. Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Bye now.